What if I told you that the kid everyone laughed at for his torn sneakers would become the greatest basketball player of his generation? This is the story of how mockery became motivation and how a teenager's determination would silence every doubt. The year was 2002. St. Vincent-St. Mary High School in Akron, Ohio. While most students worried about homework and weekend plans, one student carried a burden far heavier than textbooks. His name was LeBron James, and he was about to prove that greatness doesn't come from what you wear, it comes from what burns inside you. The afternoon sun filtered through the small windows of the St. Vincent-St. Mary locker room. Players filed in after school, their voices echoing off the metal lockers as they prepared for practice. The room smelled of leather and sweat, a familiar scent that had become home to these young athletes. LeBron sat on the wooden bench, his long frame hunched slightly as he reached into his worn gym bag. Around him, his teammates were engaged in their usual pre-practice ritual, showing off their latest gear. Marcus pulled out a fresh pair of Air Jordans, still gleaming white from the box. Tyler held up his new Nike basketball shorts, the tags still attached. The conversations flowed easily, filled with excitement about new releases and weekend shopping trips. But LeBron's hands moved slowly as he pulled out his basketball shoes. They told a different story entirely. The once white sneakers had seen better days, much better days. Duct tape held the sole to the upper on the left shoe, while the right one had a visible hole near the toe that had been there for months. The laces were frayed, and the cushioning had long since compressed to nearly nothing. "Yo, LeBron!" Marcus called out, his voice carrying across the locker room. "Man, what are those things on your feet?" The room gradually fell quiet as attention turned to LeBron. He continued lacing his shoes methodically, each movement deliberate and calm. He had been through this before. Tyler joined in with a laugh that cut through the silence. "Bro, I think those shoes are older than my little sister. How do you even run in those?" Other teammates began to gather around, their amusement growing. "Look at that hole," someone whispered, not bothering to lower their voice. "I can literally see his sock." "Maybe we should start a collection," another voice added. "Help LeBron get some real basketball shoes." The laughter rippled through the locker room like a wave. LeBron's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but his hands never stopped moving. He finished tying his left shoe and moved to the right one, his movements still steady and controlled. What his teammates didn't understand, what they couldn't see, was the story behind those shoes. They didn't know about the nights when his mother, Gloria, worked double shifts just to keep food on the table. They didn't know about the times when buying new shoes meant choosing between dinner and basketball. They didn't know that those torn sneakers had carried him through over 2 years of practices, games, and dreams. LeBron stood up slowly, his full height casting a shadow across the bench. At 17, he was already 6'8", his frame lean but powerful. His dark eyes swept across the room, taking in every face, every smirk, every whispered comment. In that moment, he made a decision that would define not just this practice, but his entire approach to life. He wouldn't get angry, he wouldn't argue, he wouldn't make excuses, he would simply show them who he was. Coach Drew Joyce II blew his whistle, and the team filed onto the court. The gymnasium was a cathedral of ambition, its polished floors reflecting the bright overhead lights. This was where reputations were made and broken, where potential either flourished or withered under pressure. LeBron jogged onto the court, his torn shoes squeaking softly against the hardwood. The sound was different from his teammates' crisp new sneakers, quieter, more worn, but somehow more determined. The first drill was defensive slides. As the players lined up across the baseline, LeBron positioned himself at the center. When the whistle blew, something extraordinary happened. While his teammates moved with the casual confidence of youth, LeBron moved with the intensity of someone who had something to prove. His torn shoes gripped the floor with surprising tenacity. Each step was precise, each movement calculated. The hole in his right shoe didn't slow him down. If anything, it seemed to propel him forward with an energy that defied explanation. During the scrimmage that followed, LeBron became unstoppable. Every shot that left his hands seemed guided by an invisible force. Every defensive play was executed with surgical precision. When Marcus drove to the basket, the same Marcus who had mocked his shoes, LeBron rose from seemingly nowhere to block the shot so cleanly that the ball sailed into the stands. The gymnasium fell silent, except for the echo of the blocked shot. Tyler, who had laughed the loudest in the locker room, found himself defending LeBron on the next possession. LeBron looked at him for a moment, his eyes calm but intense, then drove past him with such speed and power that Tyler stumbled backward. The dunk that followed shook the backboard and sent a message that reverberated through every corner of the gym. Coach Joyce watched from the sideline, his arms crossed and his expression unreadable. He had seen talented players before, but what he was witnessing now was different. This wasn't just skill, it was transformation. This was a young man turning pain into power, mockery into motivation. As practice continued, something shifted in the atmosphere. The laughter from the locker room felt like a distant memory, replaced by a growing sense of awe and respect. LeBron's teammates began to realize they weren't just watching good basketball, they were witnessing greatness in its rawest form. With each possession, LeBron's torn shoes seemed to disappear from relevance. What mattered wasn't what was on his feet, but what was in his heart. The determination that had carried him through countless challenges was now on full display, transforming every drill into a masterclass and every play into poetry. Marcus, who had started the mockery, found himself watching in admiration as LeBron executed a no-look pass that split two defenders perfectly. Tyler, who had laughed at the hole in LeBron's shoe, could only shake his head in amazement as LeBron pulled up for a three-pointer from well beyond the arc and swished it with effortless precision. When practice ended, the locker room was different. The earlier chatter had been replaced by a quiet respect that didn't need words. LeBron sat on the same bench, untying the same torn shoes. But everything had changed. Marcus approached first, his earlier arrogance replaced by genuine respect. "Man," he said quietly, "I'm sorry about what I said earlier. That was something else out there." Tyler nodded in agreement, his voice subdued. "I've never seen anyone play like that. Those shoes. I guess it's not about what you wear." Other teammates gathered around, each offering their own quiet words of respect and apology. But LeBron simply nodded graciously, his demeanor unchanged. He had proven his point without saying a word, without raising his voice, without allowing anger to consume him. As LeBron packed his torn shoes back into his gym bag, Coach Joyce approached. The older man had coached basketball for over 2 decades, and he recognized something special when he saw it. "Son," Coach Joyce said, his voice carrying the weight of experience, "what I saw out there today, that's not just talent, that's character. That's the kind of heart that changes everything." LeBron looked up, his eyes meeting his coach's gaze. "Coach, they can laugh at my shoes all they want, but they can't laugh at my dreams." Coach Joyce smiled, a knowing expression crossing his face. "Keep that fire, LeBron. Keep that hunger. Because one day, the whole world is going to know your name, and when they do, it won't be because of what you wore. It'll be because of who you are." What happened in that gymnasium that day was more than just a basketball practice. It was a lesson in resilience, a masterclass in turning adversity into advantage. LeBron's torn shoes became a symbol not of poverty, but of perseverance, not of limitation, but of limitless potential. In the years that followed, LeBron would go on to achieve everything Coach Joyce had predicted and more. He would become a 4-time NBA champion, a 4-time Finals MVP, and one of the greatest players in basketball history. He would earn hundreds of millions of dollars and influence lives around the world. But on this day, in this moment, he was still just a teenager with torn shoes and an unbreakable spirit. The next time someone judges you by what you lack instead of what you possess, remember LeBron's torn shoes. Remember that greatness isn't about having the best equipment, it's about having the best attitude. It's about turning every doubt into determination, every challenge into motivation. Those teammates learned a lesson that day that went far beyond basketball. Never underestimate someone based on appearances, because you might just be looking at the future king. If this story inspired you to never give up on your dreams, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their circumstances don't define their potential. And remember, champions aren't made by what they wear, but by what they believe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.